truffle burger with whipped goat cheese, balsamic onions, and arugula. Delicious. Okay, so to start, we are going to prepare our onion jam. So we're using 2 sweet yellow onions. So we're gonna thinly slice these and then caramelize them in a pan, add a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and cook them down to create this nice sweet condiment that's going to be a really great contrast to the umami of the rest of the burger. So we're heating our pan over medium heat, and we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Once the butter starts to foam, you can add your onions in. And the key to good brown caramelized onions is to actually let them sit, so don't stir them too frequently. So we're gonna let this first cook, sit here for a few minutes so it gets nice and brown on one side. There's nothing like the smell of butter and onions cooking. So the browning is really important because that's what's going to help bring out the sweetness in the onions and really give it that nice caramelized flavor. All right, our onions are really nice and golden brown. So our final step is we're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. And this is just going to help deglaze the pan, but also add just a touch more of sweetness to our onions. We're going to season the onions with a little bit of salt and pepper at the very, very end. And we're waiting to the end to do this because we didn't want our onions to sweat before. We wanted them to get that nice brown color. So our onion jam is done. We're gonna set this aside and then move on to the next step. Okay, so for the cheese on our burger, we're going to be using a whipped truffle goat cheese. And we're gonna combine fresh goat cheese with a little bit of minced garlic and our truffle oil. It's gonna give the burger just a really nice tangy flavor with that subtle hint of truffle. I find that goat cheese works particularly well with truffle. It helps balance out all that earthy, rich flavor of the truffles and just brings it up and gives it a bit of lightness. So let's mince our garlic right into a big mixing bowl. We'll add in our goat cheese. This is about 5 ounces of goat cheese. It's been softened, so out of the fridge for about 30 minutes or so, which will make it a little easier to whip up together. We'll add a couple tablespoons of milk just to help everything blend, a pinch of salt, and then about a teaspoon of Zucchi's truffle flavored extra virgin olive oil, which is flavored with real black truffle flakes. Okay, so to blend this together, we're gonna use a hand mixer with a whisk attachment, and we're going to whip this until it's nice and fluffy. When you're whipping, you want to start on the low speed setting of your hand mixer and then slowly, gradually work your way up to the fastest setting. And that again will just help the goat cheese to relax a little bit and spread out a little bit, and then as you whip faster, it's just a little bit easier and doesn't go everywhere. So your goat cheese is done. When it's really nice and fluffy, it should resemble a buttercream frosting, and it also should have increased in size a little bit just from whipping in all that air. You could make this in advance and stick it in the fridge if you wanted to. Just let it come up to room temp before serving your burgers so that it's a little bit more spreadable. We've got our onions cooked, our whipped goat cheese ready, so it's now time to cook our burgers. I've taken the burger patties out of the fridge, so they've been coming up to room temp, which will really help with browning as we go to cook them. And then we're gonna add a little bit of salt just on the outside. If you're using ground beef that's not preformed into patties, you wanna make sure that the patties are wide enough or even just a little bit wider than the buns that you're using, because they will shrink up a little bit when we go to cook them. Another tip is to actually take your thumb and press it into the center of each burger to create a little dent. Because burgers tend to swell up in the center as they cook, so this will just help offset any swelling that may happen. So we've got our pan on medium heat, and we're gonna go ahead and add our burgers. And you wanna hear that nice sizzle sound when you first put it down. That means that the pan is hot enough. By the way, we are using 80-20 ground beef. You wanna use the best ground beef that you can find. I think that a dry aged beef would actually work really well here because you kind of get that funkiness from the dry aged, which complements the funkiness of the truffle oil. We're gonna let these cook about 3 to 4 minutes on each side. You wanna make sure that we get a nice brown color on each side. So you don't wanna touch them or move them too much while they are cooking. Just let them do their thing, and then after a few minutes, we'll flip them and let them continue to cook on the other side. You could also do this on the grill if you wanted to, although a cast iron pan like this works just fine too. So we're gonna go ahead and just transfer them to our plate over here and let them rest for about 5 minutes. And while we do that, we can get all of our ingredients and toppings ready to go. All right, so we're gonna toast our buns. And we're gonna use the same skillet that we used to cook the burgers in. I just wiped all the grease out with a paper towel. We'll add a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. Toasting the bun is an integral part of a good burger, in my opinion, because you get that nice crunch as you go to bite into the burger, and it helps it from getting too soggy with all the other ingredients. And we're gonna just pop them down into the pan and let them get nice and golden on one side. I want them to have that nice crisp to them. So we've got all of our ingredients ready. It's time to assemble our burgers. So we're gonna take our buns. I like to spread the goat cheese on the bottom of the bun just because I like to get that nice tangy truffle flavor upon the first bite on my tongue. Then we're gonna top it with the burger. Stick it on there. And then next will be our onions. And this is really gonna be our condiment to the burgers. They're gonna add that nice sweet flavor. Because of the sweetness in the onions, you really don't need any ketchup or anything else like that. The final step is a little bit of arugula. Adds a nice color, but also a good peppery punch. We'll add a small pinch of salt just to season the arugula a little bit. Now, to finish it off, if you want to add just a little bit more of that truffle flavor, you can drizzle on just a tiny bit more of Zucchi's truffle flavored extra virgin olive oil. It's always a good idea to just start with a little bit, and you can always add more as you taste the burger and see what you like. Beautiful. So we'll put our bun on top, and our burgers are ready to go. Truffle burger with whipped goat cheese, balsamic onions, and arugula. Delicious. So good. I love the toasted bun. It adds that really nice crunch. The whipped goat cheese with the truffle oil. It's just the right amount of truffle oil in this burger. The sweet onions on top are just a really nice caramelized flavor. The arugula, that little peppery punch of green that you need. Perfect.